Yo, what is going on? How is everybody doing today? Welcome to the Risen Fallen podcast. I am your host, Mark Henriksen, and how is everybody doing? Welcome to the show. If you're brand new to this show, then what you can expect is open and authentic conversations about things like mental health, self-development, and how to get your life moving in the right direction. If you're not feeling good about where you are right now in life, at least having the confidence knowing that you're moving at least 1% closer, one step closer every single day to the person that you'd like to be, the life you'd like to lead, and, the world you'd like to live in. And so yesterday I woke up and first thing in the morning, I think it was first thing actually. First thing in the morning I always feed my cats and grab my coffee. But yesterday, after doing that, I go outside, and normally when I do my runs, I like to just kind of go by myself. I like to just kind of be like, okay, I just really need to push myself. I need to push the pace. I need to focus. And so a lot of the time I'll throw on, some audio books or some podcasts, and I'll just go out and send it. And I always, I used to listen to music a lot while I did my runs. And then there's like this whole fad online about how like listening to music while you run is cheating. It's like kind of like one of those things where people are like, oh, it makes it too enjoyable. You can get distracted. Like, you should be running without any headphones. You should just be like running and just like being mindful of your thoughts and, all of these things. And, you could really just take that mentality. And if you were to take it to its logical conclusion in life, it's like, so you're just saying that you shouldn't enjoy things? You know what I mean? Like, it becomes a point where you're like, oh, you shouldn't do it this way, you shouldn't do it that way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to be honest. Yesterday, I go outside, I grab my dad's dog. She needed a run. I put on some music that I haven't listened to in a long time, like something just upbeat and fun and exciting instead of a podcast or an audiobook. And I get outside, I got the dog, I got the music going, I got, sun shining down on my face. I start moving a little bit. And I just like, I was like, wow, I feel so good right now. Like, it's like, just like literally, it's one of those moments where you're going down the street and you're just by yourself or with a dog or whatever. And you're just like a big ass smile plastered on your face and realizing this is like crazy. Like, this is the dopamine rush. This is, we got music going. We got the sunshine going. We got a dog smiling at me thinking I'm the best person in the world, realizing that is the dopamine rush. That is the endorphins running through your veins, and these types of things. It's not like it. Obviously, what that does is it pulls you deeper into the activities that you're doing. You're like just like fully focused. You're fully immersed, and there's just like a full dopamine rush going, and. It's funny because this is like a kind of a world. I'm sure you guys get this on your social media feeds as well. But we're kind of in like the world where like dopamine rushes and all of these things are so easily accessible. And because of the fact that it's so easily accessible and the forms of dopamine rushes, can kind of be harmful sometimes in our society. And so there's like a huge subsect of people that, they talk about dopamine detoxes, dopamine chasing, dopamine addiction, cheap dopamine, and, instant gratification ultimately, because that kind of is the idea of like what people are talking about here. And I've realized, going for that run yesterday, and I've realized this many a time in life, but I was reminded of the lesson yesterday that, we shouldn't be sitting out here talking about these things where we're actually demonizing dopamine. Dopamine is not a bad thing. Obviously it's a good thing if you've ever felt it, right? Like it's one of those things where it's an internal reward system for your body. And so this idea of like dopamine detoxing and dopamine this and dopamine that, and people talking about dopamine like it's a bad thing, it is literally your body's reward system. If you think about where the a lot of the sources of dopamine rushes are derived from, it's all survival instinct, right? Like reproducing, like feeding yourself, achieving a skill, like getting like completing the hunt, like making sure that you can live to tomorrow. All of those things are just natural dopamine rushes. Calorically dense food gives us a dopamine rush because at one point, if you didn't get those calories, you weren't living. Like that's it. You weren't going to make it many more days. And so, like, all of these things that we have in society that play off that same system, it's like giving your body the idea, okay, we're going to survive the till tomorrow, right? I just realized that painting's crooked, but I'll fix it after this episode. And so, it's one of those things where it's viewed and demonized. It's viewed as like a destructive thing because we see people, sitting there and they're using this reward system in their life as a way to reward themselves for doing things that obviously they don't really want to be doing, and that's why they feel guilt and shame about it. Or they're doing things that when you're gamifying the system, right? Like you can get the dopamine rush and still not put yourself in a better position. And so the idea I'm trying to say right now is that we should move away from demonizing dopamine, because dopamine itself, this idea of a dopamine rush being a bad thing, is completely false. Dopamine rushes, like I just said, are your body's intrinsic, internal reward system. And so really what you have to ask yourself is, what am I rewarding? What behaviors, what actions, and what things am I rewarding? Because getting a dopamine rush when you go outside, hit some playlists and get some sun on your face and go for a run, you should feel rewarded for doing something like that. You should. But should you reward yourself for doom scrolling, sitting in your living room, sitting on the toilet, sitting, just like sitting and scrolling? Should you be rewarded with, pornography, or should you be rewarded with cheap food filled with gross shit? Should you be rewarded with gambling and drugs and all of those things? Like those, by continuously doing these behaviors and then getting the dopamine rush, you're consistently rewarding yourself to do these things, which is definitely, it's an incentive structure. It's kind of like one of those things where, this is going to rub people the wrong way, but like if you sit and give people free drugs, they probably don't have much incentive to stop doing drugs. And so that's kind of the exact same thing with what's going on with your phone. If you sit and just scroll and aimlessly do that all day, there's probably not going to be much incentive to stop doing that, because your body is getting this massive dopamine rush every single time. And then it truly just becomes your source of happiness, because a lot of these things, when you talk about a dopamine rush or dopamine spikes, it's not just like going from, like, if you were to think of it as like a video game and you have like a scale of 0 to 10 or whatever, it's not just going from like a 4 to a 6. When you're talking about like a real dopamine rush, it's going from like a 0 to 2 range up to like 9 to 10. And then slowly, as you keep hitting that button, the dopamine spike impacts you a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less. That's when dopamine detoxes and all of those things actually do come into context. But you have to really think about, if you're one of those types of people that thinks about addiction, is concerned about your behaviors, is wanting to change your life. If you're one of those people where you can't confidently claim, yeah, I feel good about myself every single day, then you might need to be a bit more mindful of what you are rewarding with your dopamine systems. Not to demonize the dopamine rushes and the dopamine spikes and like the chemicals and hormones themselves. They're not bad. It is a tool. So you have to think about how you're using that tool. Are you using it like as a way to, and again, I use the phone as a perfect example because most of them are made by Apple, and there's a weird connection between the apple and the Garden of Eden. I don't know if you guys look into that stuff, but I'm a crazy kooky conspiracy theorist, and I do think that that is kind of basically you have the apple, the proverbial apple in your pocket, in your hand, of the knowledge of good and evil. This thing that we're told will make you like a god. You get to you get all the knowledge in the world. You get all this. You have all this stuff, the knowledge of good and evil. And you choose. Do you want to bite from it? Right? Like, do you want to participate in that? And where are you? Like, again, it just comes down to where are you getting your dopamine rushes, your good sources of dopamine rushes, rewarding yourself for doing things like running outside, training, sunlight, good music, creating something, finishing a job, having a real conversation, playing with a dog, playing with a friend, like laughing with people, praying, working out, building something. All of these sources of natural, great, amazing dopamine rushes. And then the flip side of it is, doom scrolling, junk food, porn, drugs, gambling, like impulsive spending, like doom scrolling, like drama in your life. And that's, when you look at like reality shows and stuff like that, that's really honestly like part of it, because we love to watch conflict. We love to see those types of things. And there is something, and for guys, it's obviously just like straight up conflict, like physical conflict. We love that kind of thing. And it's okay, I think, to participate in those things or view those things. But you really have to think about, how often you're doing those things. Because if you were, you're basically just like, and that is what the idea, like hijacking your dopamine system is. Because eventually, like that's basically what it becomes. You're chasing this dragon. You're chasing this high. Anyone that knows anything about addiction is in tune with this type of stuff. You're going to chase that high, right? And so you have to really think about. I guess maybe this is a better way to say it. Is think about the means in which you're chasing that high. Does that make sense? That kind of feels like the best of the best. Way to explain it is like the problem is not like chasing the high, it's like chasing the wrong high or chasing it in the wrong ways. If that kind of puts it into a more perspective, because not having, it's impossible really, honestly, to not feel dopamine rushes and not feel dopamine spikes. So really, honestly, it's like, where do you want to get it? Like, check the source. Has the well been poisoned? Right? There's an opportunity as well here to use dopamine as a leverage to incentivize yourself. Use that incentivization system that you naturally built in have, to make some of the things in your life that you don't necessarily enjoy doing, but you have to do, to make them a little bit more enjoyable. Like if you don't like running and you need to improve your cardio, you want to feel better about how you look, you want to have more energy when you wake up in the morning, then incentivize your body to do that. Listen, like make a playlist of songs that make you feel good. The ones that really honestly bang, even if they're like some garbage, crappy, catchy pop song, anything that actually makes you feel good. If it genuinely makes you happy and makes you feel good, listen to that song every single day when you leave your house and put your shoes on and get outside. Because naturally, internally, what that's going to do is reward you for the behavior that you've done. And then slowly, everyone knows about Pavlov's dog. Like, you're going to be drooling every time you hear that song to go for a run. Enjoy. Like, if you don't like reading or journaling, make a cup of coffee you're going to enjoy. Make a cup of tea you're going to enjoy. Whatever it could be. And sit down and play like some calming music. Like, use this incentivization system to do things that you actually enjoy and things that are actually going to make you move forward in life. It sounds like a surface level kind of deep, or a surface level like kind of shallow message, but honestly, it is pretty deep. If you use this system that you've been given, this dopamine system, in the right way, you can use it to completely change your life. You can use it to boost, dopamine when you do things that you don't normally do. So it is something you have to deeply think about. And honestly, one of the best ways that I use, that I think about these types of things to help keep me on track, to help keep me in the right mind state for this, is think about it as like if you were to raise a child, right? And some of you don't even have to think about that. You already know what it's like to raise a child. But imagine you're raising yourself and think about, like, would I want to incentivize my kid to just kind of like doom scroll and share memes and, watch garbage TV and eat garbage food and have garbage sleeps and have garbage, like, would I incentivize my kid to do that? And then probably the answer logically is no. And then the next conclusion is, why am I doing that with myself? Why don't I incentivize myself to do things that I know I should do that I don't normally want to do, right? Like, you have to honestly, genuinely think about that, because a lot of us go through our day-to-day lives and we're without, maybe we know about it, maybe it's more subconscious, but we are basically incentivizing ourselves to move less, do less, judge more, hate more, pretty much everything, fear more, be anxious, be angry, look at social media, look at reality TV, look at the news, look at this, look at that, look at this group of people. And we're incentivizing ourselves to literally become those like fucking weird creatures from Wall-E, like the or the Matrix or whatever. Like, people are just I don't know, man. It's an interesting thing for me to think about. And for me personally, I like to use it as a tool. I like to use my dopamine system as a tool, like I said, to incentivize things that I know I should be doing, that I don't normally feel good when I do them. And so I find a way to kind of hijack my own dopamine system to encourage myself to do things like, taxes, paperwork, scheduling, even running sometimes. Like, there's definitely days I wake up and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this. So I have to be like, okay, I'm going to make some coffee. I'm going to do some stretching. I'm going to, listen to some good music. And then when I get home, I'll have like some fruit, any way I can possibly use my dopamine system to incentivize myself to obviously do things that I'd be more proud of. And you have to really think about, where do you get your dopamine on a daily basis? When did you feel the happiest, or when did you feel the least stressed today? Because obviously the other side of dopamine is it kind of blocks out the stress and anxiety. It's not just like a good feeling. It's like the erasure of bad feelings, if that makes sense. And so really ask yourself, is your reward system, is your dopamine system incentivizing you to do things like doing things that are positive for you? Or are you more incentivized from your dopamine system to just chill out and doom scroll and fucking really honestly waste your time and energy? That honestly is what I think the spiritual warfare aspect of it is. And so don't just ask yourself where did I feel, because that's the first step. Ask yourself, where did I feel the best today? Where did I feel the least bad today? And then ask yourself, am I proud of that? Would I be proud to reward my kid for doing that? Because if you wouldn't, then why would you do it yourself? So, on that note, I think that's a beautiful place to wrap this episode up. Keep it short and sweet. We're just shy of 20 minutes right now. It is June 1st. It's a beautiful month. It's a beautiful day, and I hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you next Monday. Much love. Peace out. Love you all. Bye.